Hello, good people of the internet. Today I'm going to be doing a portraiture tutorial, and I'm going to be focusing mostly on proportion because I find that a lot of aspiring artists want to draw, and a lot of them have a good grasp of things like shading and color and whatever, but proportion is not something that we naturally have a grasp of. Even if you have a natural inclination towards art or portraiture or whatever, most people don't have a natural inclination towards accurate proportion. It's something that you learn over time. um, Something to understand about portraiture or drawing in general: a drawing, especially an accurate drawing, is just a collection of shapes that are interlocking. Each shape makes the shapes around it. So this shape wouldn't be what it is without that shape. That shape wouldn't be what it is without this. They share borders, so those borders create um, the picture or the illusion of form on the page. What? But the human mind is not very good at creating these shapes because these are pretty complex shapes to create accurately. Um, for instance, if I had to try and create this shape here, uh, I'd get something similar, but it wouldn't quite fit. And it's important that it fits perfectly because the other shapes would not correspond with it. And if the other shapes don't correspond, then you get an out of proportion drawing. See, this doesn't fit there. It's supposed to connect as it does here. So a little trick that I use to create those shapes is straight lines. Straight lines are much easier to dictate than curves. A curve, to create a perfect curve, is a lot harder than to create lots of rough lines that make that curve. So for that same shape, I would have lots of little lines, and those would give me an approximation of the shape. And that approximation would be a lot closer to the actual form than trying to get that shape perfectly the first time. So basically, if you turn all of these lines into straight lines, you get a mess. But this mess helps you structure these, and these help you structure this. So what you need to do is turn every line, every possible line that you see on the face into a shape, and from that you can start. So I've already done this because it would have taken too long. Okay, now that I'm zoomed in on the eye nicely, I can better create this form using the lines that I've created. Lots of sketchy, messy lines to create the more refined, elegant curves. Always look more at your reference picture than the actual drawing, because it creates a trust relationship between your hand and your eye. If you consistently looking at your drawing, you're not looking at what you are actually drawing, and your eye is telling your hand what to do. So what your eye sees is very important. If your eyes are not seeing what it's supposed to be drawing, then your hands will not know what it's supposed to be drawing. Eye informed hand, that relationship is very important, and this is very helpful. It's important to do these lines very lightly as well, because you don't want really dark lines on your drawing that you'd want to erase. These straight lines are meant more for structure than anything. They won't show up in your final drawing, so do them light. Also do your curves light when you're starting out, because you don't want the mistake of doing the curve wrong and then having to go back and direct it after you've done it dark. for instance, in this, I feel like this curve on the top of the eye is slightly off, so what I would do is erase. I'm using Photoshop, but these principles work on with pencil, paints, whatever. It's just basic understanding, theory work of portraiture. Okay, now that I've got that blocked in, I can start on the eyebrow or something. It's not about getting it perfect the first time. You don't want it to get perfect the first time, because that's an illusion. The human mind has a tendency of wanting things to be perfect, so it sees them as perfect. But when you continue for long enough, you start to see that you're doing nonsense. So yeah, slow and steady wins the race. And there you have it, some semblance of that eye. And I achieved that through those straight lines, because I knew those straight lines gave me a reference point for where those curves would be. If I had done it freehand, it would not nearly be as accurate. Semblance. If you really want to be rough about it, let me just rough out some areas. It doesn't need to be neat and tidy like that eye. Can it be a mess of lines which later become your form? The important thing is not to be afraid to make mistakes, because mistakes is how the mind like calibrates your lines better, which is a good thing. So if you turn all of those lines into rough curves, voila, you have a much better idea of where everything is than you would have trying to make everything perfect the first time. Rough is not bad.